Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Saturday. It's Daryl here. It is bright and freaking early, man. It's 3 a.m. on the dot here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, if you watch my channel, I've told you guys before, I get up at 2 a.m. just to do this video. And usually I get up and I start going through, I have all these apps and I go through the news stories to see what's current, what I share in common with some news stories that I got an opinion of or I have some experience with, something people will be interested in. That's how I pick a video, a story to do each day. And the very first story I came across this morning was about Matthew Perry and his toxicology, the final toxicology coming through and what he passed away from. And I stopped right there. The very first story. I think it's the only time one of the very few times I've ever done this out of 2,300 videos. The very first story I came across, bam, I knew I was going to talk about this. Before I get into this, let me talk briefly about monetization. For the first 30 seconds, my channel's monetized, and for the first 30 seconds of the video, I have to be careful. I have to be more careful than non-monetized stations, channels, because of advertising. And I have to watch what I put in the thumbnail, watch what I put in the title, and for the first 30 seconds, I have to kind of really watch what I'm saying. No swearing, no mentioning of illicit things for the first 30 seconds. And when I did the Aaron Carter video on the final toxicology, it's the second most views I've ever gotten. I think it was like 60,000 views. The first most views I ever got was 170,000 views on the Beau of the Fifth Column video. Second was Aaron Carter, the final toxicology. And I was denied, I got yellow, it's called yellow lighted. That means I wasn't, because of what I talked about, I wasn't going to get monetization for it. It was hard to place advertisers because of what I talked about. So this video, honestly, I'm not sure if I want to monetize it. And there's a reason for that. Because I only make a couple, the views I'm getting now, I'm only making a few bucks per video. And I know if I'm more blunt and just say what I want to say and what I have to say in the thumbnail, in the first 30 seconds have passed now, I can get my point across better. I can get more views and get my point across better. I believe, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, I believe Matthew Perry not only died from the acute effects of ketamine, which is what the medical examiner, the toxicology came back. That's the final conclusion. And drowning and coronary artery disease and the effects of buprenorphine. But mainly it was the acute effects of ketamine and drowning. In other words, he lost consciousness because of the effects of ketamine and passed out. And I've never taken ketamine in my life for anything. This is kind of a new drug. I've been clean and sober since October 23rd, 2006. So this is kind of new. I've been clean for 17 years now. And this is come around since I've been clean and sober. But I do have experience with methadone and addiction. And I'm going to talk briefly. I'm going to talk somewhat about that. Let me talk about Matthew Perry first here. So the results are back. And like I said, I've never taken ketamine before. From what I understand, he was being treated with ketamine. And ketamine is an hallucinogen. I believe it's classified as an hallucinogen. And it's used to treat, along with like psychoanalyzing, it's used to treat addiction and the effects of opiate addiction and stuff like that. And that's why he was taking buprenorphine too. From what I remember, there's going to be links down below with use and misuse of buprenorphine, Suboxone, methadone. From what I remember, I thought buprenorphine was put subcutaneously under the skin for a couple months. I thought that's how it was used. But I've read that it also can be abused. I don't know how it's abused, but he was being treated with ketamine. And apparently, the way ketamine helps people, it causes a dissociative effect. It's also used as a party drug in illicit, illegal circles. It can be an illegal drug, but it is licensed. It is okay by the DEA or the FDA or the DEA to use as in medical circumstances. And it causes a dissociative effect between the mind and body. And I remember using hallucinogens back like 30 years ago. And I know what they're talking about. I remember taking mushrooms. And the only way I could explain it to you guys is when I took those mushrooms, it was a very peaceful feeling. And it felt like I could see myself. It wasn't like I was actually standing outside myself. It wasn't anything like that. But it was like I understood, like it cut through all the bull in my head. It's like I could think of myself in a third person. Like, usually you lie to yourself. Like, I need this. I could get away with using this. I could do this one time, stuff like that. That's how the addiction starts. And from what I remember, it kind of separated. It was almost like you were thinking of yourself in the third person. Like it was almost like I saw myself as somebody on the street. I see somebody that's using on the street, and I'm like, that poor guy. Can he see that why he's doing this? Can he see what he's doing to his life? And I could actually think of myself as if I was looking at somebody on the street. It cut through the bull. That's the best way I can explain it to you guys. Okay, so he was being treated with ketamine, and he had been treated I think it was about 10 days before. Now this is out of your system in 3 or 4 days. So what he was using that night, he was misusing or abusing. In other words, he got this from some other source. It says it was the amount that was in his system was more than usually would be used for this kind of professional medical use. Plus, it would have been out of his system. In other words, he was getting this on the side, and he was abusing it or using it. And this doesn't surprise me. This is the disease of addiction. Like I tell you guys, I exercise, right? But I exercise to extremes. With me in my mind, I know for a fact this is the way my life's going to be. I have the disease of addiction, and I see it clearly now after 17 years. I tell you guys, I exercise 4 hours a day. Swear to God, literally. I start exercising after I do this video, and I finish up about 10 in the morning. Every day. Christmas, Thanksgiving, rain, snow, sleet, every day. I started out at 15 minutes a day. And I know this is addiction. I'm addicted. I get addicted to if a little's good, more's better. It's like jogging. You start out jogging, 2 miles. And then you do, got to do a little more. Got to get a little better, a little more. If a little's good, more's better. That's that in a nutshell. And that's, I take that serious. It's an ingrained thing in my head. Like I showed you guys a bag of Twizzlers the other day. It's a monster bag, and that's how I gain weight. I get carried away. I get addicted to things. If a little's good, more's got to be better. And it's almost like an obsessive compulsive thought, just permanently ingrained in my head, and I have to watch myself for that. And that's what I believe Matthew Perry passed away from. I think he realized that the ketamine was working. So in his head, he was thinking, well, a little more would be better. It makes me feel good. It's working. I feel good when I take it. I'm clean. In his mind, he's clean and sober. So if I do a little on the side, nobody's going to know, and it's helping me. And that's the disease of addiction. And I've never taken ketamine, but I was on methadone. I credit methadone for saving my life. Okay. And buprenorphine, I was under the impression that buprenorphine was given subcutaneously under the skin, but it can also be abused from what I've read. I'm going to talk about methadone because that saved my life, but that can also be abused because people might wonder, if he was getting ketamine to treat his addiction, then how come he passed away? How come it killed him? It's got to be the doctor's fault. No, not at all. And it's the same thing with methadone or Suboxone. And I could say this honestly, I never abused methadone. And I contribute that to the safety, the regulations they had in place at the time. This was 17 years ago now. And there's a methadone clinic here in town. And from what I've seen and heard, it seems like the regulations have loosened up since I first started going there 17 years ago. Let me describe this to you guys. When I first started going there, they were open every single day around the year. And there's a reason for this, except Christmas. 1 day a year. They were open every single day. And this is so they wouldn't have to give people take home. They're called take homes, a bottle to take home. So you go in there, you take your dose. And when I first started there, we were required every single week to go to an NA or AA meeting. And there were certain things to stay in the program. After like 3 or 4 months, I had to test completely clean or I would get kicked out of the program. And that's what got me clean from cocaine and from crack, because the methadone helps. It's an agonist, an opiate agonist. It binds to the receptors, the opiate receptors in your head. So it relieves any kind of withdrawal symptoms. And it doesn't provide a high or a low. The idea here, like with methadone and Suboxone, is to give somebody a stable line, no highs, no lows. Just a stable, continuous dose. And both Suboxone and methadone provide that with the binding to the receptors. And like I said, they had very strict rules when I first started going there. And I'm not sure, but I think they've kind of relaxed these. I'm glad I went when I did. And I'm glad I got in the frame of mind of not abusing this drug when I was back when I 17 years ago. So we'd have to have we'd have to go to NA and A meetings every week. And I think that's part of the reason that I didn't abuse, that I took it seriously. Also, they would have, after I think it was about a month or I can't remember what it was, maybe 2-3 months, if you followed all the rules, you have to meet with a counselor every week. You have to have the NA and A meetings. Like I said, you go every single day, Sundays. And then eventually, after a couple months, you get a take-home. That you can be trusted with one take-home. And then after like 6 months, you get another one. And then after a year, you might get a week's worth, like 5 or 6. I think it was like 5 years. After 5 years, you got 2 weeks or 13 days of take-homes. And once you get these take-homes, they can call them back at any time to make sure that you're not overusing them or abusing them. Like you have to, they could call you at any time of the day and tell you you have to bring all the bottles in tomorrow. And so we have to check them to make sure you got all your bottles. They're all taken on the days they were supposed to be taken. You have all the bottles left that you're supposed to have left. And I don't know if they've actually checked the contents of the bottles and all that. And this was good because when I first started there, I was an addict. And I'm glad they had those regulations in place. The main reason I think that I didn't abuse the drug is because I knew what would happen. By going to these NA and A meetings, I started to understand my addiction. And I knew that I couldn't, I couldn't just tell myself, like once I got some take-homes, I knew that I didn't want to abuse it, first of all, because I felt good for the first time in my life. And I knew that if I abused it, that it would cause a spike. Like I'd feel a little good this day, but the next day I'd feel a lot worse. I'd pay for it. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't see any reason. I thought that was stupid. Why would I do that? Why would I feel this good this day and this bad the next day? That doesn't make any sense. And I knew myself. I knew, from going to these meetings, I knew that I couldn't even do this one day. I knew if I tried getting away with it one day, that I would try doing it 2 days, and I tried doing it 3 days. And before I know it, I'd be out of this program, and I'd be back using it. I'd be back in the complete hell of addiction. And I knew that. And, and plus with the strict regulations they had, the bottle checks, the meetings, the counselors, and they had counselors that were ex-addicts. So, it's hard to lie to an ex-addict because they know the lies. And it worked for me. It really worked for me. But there's a chance of misuse, abuse of these drugs like ketamine that Matthew Perry passed away from. I was trying to explain to you guys. Even though he was being treated with this drug, he chose, because it made him feel good and because of the disease of addiction, he thought he could just use a little more on the side to make him feel just a little bit better. If a little's good, a little more's got to be better. And it killed him. And this is just one more thing that makes me realize how lucky, there but for the grace of God go I. For some reason, things clicked with me when I first got in the methadone clinic. Like I said, and I never abused the drug because I knew I knew exactly what I do. I knew without a doubt what it would lead to, and I didn't see it was point. Why would I do that to myself? And for some reason, Matthew Perry wasn't as lucky. All right, that's the video. I hope this gets monetized. And I hope people watch this. I know a lot of people have bad opinions of methadone and Suboxone and buprenorphine. I did. My whole family did. But it saved my life. It did. If you use it correctly, it has the potential to be life-saving. It really does. And it's saved. I credit it with me being clean and productive and sober today. Methadone. and the methadone clinic. All right, that's my video, you guys. I'll be back later with another video. You guys have a good Saturday.